Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast with Ron and Kristin, where leadership meets entertainment. This podcast features stories with names and certain aspects that have been changed to keep submissions private. Enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Dirty Side of Leadership podcast, where leadership meets entertainment. I'm Kristin, and I'm joined by my amazing co-host, Ron Ward. Ron, we have to start with last weekend. Sovereignty's win at the Kentucky Derby. Total upset, right? I mean, nobody saw jockey Junior Alvarado. I'm sorry if I said that wrong.
Alvarado.
Alvarado. I'm in the Northwest. I'm not very cultured over here. Pulling off his first Derby win. You were texting me as it happened. Crazy.
Oh, Kristin, later on, we'll talk more about my interest in horses, but I love the Kentucky Derby. I love all the horse racing and even show horses. They're just such a beautiful creature. But I was yelling at the TV because it was a total underdog moment. And it made me think immediately, this isn't just luck. There's leadership, teamwork, strategy packed into that win. You don't topple the favorites without some serious alignment. And it was so amazing. I just wish I'd bet money on it, but we'll move on from that.
Right? Would you have bet on the underdog, though?
No.
Okay. I know we both cheer for the underdogs, right? But putting money on them, that's a different situation.
It's a different story.
Yeah, exactly. So today we're going to dive deep. We're going to talk about the Derby's crazy history, the money, the owners, the pressure behind the scenes, one can only imagine, the incredible demands on jockeys, and of course, the leadership lessons hiding in plain sight.
And I know if you're listening, you think, oh, yeah, a horse won a Kentucky Derby, but let that settle in what it took to get across that finish line. And not only was it not supposed to happen, but it was wet and muddy. And I mean, it tested all limits. It took nerves of steel, not just from the jockey, from the whole team, owners, trainers, barn workers, vets. It's a reminder when leadership clicks at every level, even a long shot can surprise everyone.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this so much is, even for those that are not interested in the Kentucky Derby, if you're interested in just leadership and greatness in general, this is definitely an episode for you. I kept thinking about how is this like a business win, right? Tying it back. And sometimes the scrappy team with fewer resources can outperform the giants, to your point, if they align right, stay focused, and don't choke under pressure.
No, it's true. And Kristin, as a little side note, I teach personalities, and I use a quadrant that is, you have your expressive people who are real social, the drivers, they're driven. You got amiable, those people, they don't like conflict, but they're hard workers. And then you got analytical. And I always do this in the training, but I say if a leader can get those four personalities working together instead of against one another, the sky is the limit.
Yeah.
And it's really true. So obviously, any of the horses, of course, that make it to the Kentucky Derby, there is teamwork at a high level, and it's probably not studied enough by leadership gurus, because the approach from the vision of how to get there. And these horses, if you don't know, in the Kentucky Derby, they're between 2 and 3 years old. And so these are young horses, and so much goes into it. So, yeah, I love everything about it from a fan to a leadership perspective.
That's incredible. And you're close to the little epicenter there, right? Like, we don't see much horse racing enthusiasm here on the West Coast. But over where you're at, I can only imagine.
I played college basketball. There were a lot of Derby parties around Charleston. I love the hats and all that. But I played college basketball 1 year in Kentucky, and basketball and the Derby, that's it in Kentucky. And it was big for sure.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So we're going to get into Derby history and some untold stories. As always, that's generally my favorite, the untolds. So let's back up and set the stage. So the Kentucky Derby has been running since 1875, which makes it the longest continuously held sporting event in the United States. I did not know that until I started digging into this a bit. But here's something people generally don't know, in the early days, black jockeys dominated. 13 of the 15 riders in the very first Derby were black. They were the stars of the sport.
Yeah, and that part of history got buried over time, especially with segregation and Jim Crow pushing black riders out. That's a massive leadership failure. Cutting out top talent because of prejudice always backfires on the system. And thank God we've moved beyond that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And it's wild to think about how different the sport might look today if leaders had protected that diversity and talent pipeline.
Yeah, now let's look a little bit, another segue, owners, money, and the business machine, because believe me, horse racing is a machine.
Oh, geez, yeah.
Yeah, and there's probably a dark side of it or a dirty side of it that happens you can only imagine. But I do know some stories of people trying to poison other people's horses and
my goodness.
sneaking in the middle of the night. And just doing any little thing to get an edge. So maybe we'll do another episode on that sometime.
Yeah. It reminds me of Miss Congeniality when they were like, she was like poisoning the one that was projected to win. I'm like, people absolutely do that.
Remember Nancy Kerrigan? Remember that?
Oh, yes.
The skater.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Was it Tanya
Harding, because she's from Portland.
Well,
so I knew it well.
There you go. That answers it to all my friends in the Northwest.
It really does. Oh, my goodness.
All right. Looking at the business side, the owners aren't just, hobbyists. You don't just get a racehorse. We're talking billionaires, global stables, legacy families. To even get to the Derby, you might be spending $1 million on the horse plus $50,000 to $100,000 per year on upkeep, training, and logistics. And to be honest with you, it's probably more toward the $100,000 if you're going to be competitive.
Right. Yeah. That's on the low end. And the odds are stacked against you. So there are thousands of racehorses. I think that's important to think about. Only 20 make it to the Derby each year. Yeah. Most owners lose. And that's where real leadership comes in. How do you keep your team motivated when you're burning through cash and facing extremely slim odds?
Yeah, that's true. And here's the kicker. The Derby purse is $3 million. But the real money, it's in the stud fees. If you win, we're talking tens of millions in breeding contracts over the horse's lifetime. So I think that's an interesting element about it. Everybody wants, sire the Kentucky Derby winner.
Yeah, exactly. And that's long game leadership. You're not just playing for one win. You're investing in a legacy. And I think, Ron, this is a good place to share your story. So before we started recording, Ron was sharing with me a story about, has to do with horses and horse people. And it's very tragic. And so I warned him, I'm like, I am an animal lover. Am I going to be messed up by hearing this? But it is a story that I find worth sharing, and it has impact. But if you're an animal lover, I just want to caution you that it is tragic.
Yeah, don't turn us off. Just speed it up a little bit.
Yeah.
No, I did share, because this is such a motivational, and I know it's a upbeat energy podcast today. So I was cautious about this, and that's why I ran it past Kristin, because it is tragic. But as
you wanted to balance it out. You're like, we can't be too positive.
I guess. As a U.S. probation officer, you write pre-sentence investigations, and they are very extensive. You go back to someone's birth, you check their records all over the country, like it's major. And then you put together the offense, whatever that is. You apply sentencing guidelines. It's a major document that the judge uses to sentence someone by. You also have to determine restitution, and it has to be logical, because you got defense attorneys saying, oh, no, that's too much. You got U.S. attorneys saying that's not enough. So there was a 19-year-old kid working at a stable, and this is a big stable. This is in West Virginia, and this particular stable had a lot of winning saddlebred horses. So a TV documentary came, so there were, camera crews around, and they're filming the stable and these beautiful horses. Right after they left, and this is the part that was never settled, but this kid, he says he spilt gasoline and threw a match on it to try to burn the gasoline away, which does not make sense. But he threw the match on, And all of a sudden, as you know, with stables, the fire just took off. He did try to put it out because he had burns on his arms and hands where he tried to put the fire out, but it was way beyond his capacity. This ended up burning 50 horses, fatally killing 50 horses. 20 of them were saddlebred, competitors.
Were they show horses?
They're show horses.
They were show horses.
That's
okay.
what. Yeah, wow. That's a good clarification. And so part of my job, of course, I had to interview him, all of these victims, and Kristin knows this. But if you're not a horse person, I don't know that I've seen that level of depth in love and tragedy. There was one lady who testified at the sentencing. A lot of the people brought pictures of their horse and put it on the stand while they were testifying, and she had not left the house for a year. This whole situation, Kristin, took a year to finalize, and people testified as victims at the sentencing. And there was a part of me, I still am just not sure, but this is what they believed happened. Now, I don't know, but they think that this kid was poor, never popular. So this TV crew had been around. So he started thinking if he could start a fire and put it out, he could be a local hero. That's the speculation. So of course that all backfired, but they think he thought the TV crew would come back because they were still in the area.
Okay.
So long story short, I go into this battle because some of the saddlebred horses had won multiple trophies. So their owners believed they were worth, $250,000, $500,000.
Right.
The defense counsel argued that because they were only insured for $10,000, that's the amount. So I ended up calling Tattersall Rand, this big saddlebred breeding stable. And I learned so much about especially those types of horses, but also the depth, the beauty. And I've never told you this, Kristin, but one of my favorite movies is Secretariat.
Yeah.
And I like the scenes. And there is a scene when that horse is coming around the corner and they're singing this old gospel song. And it will put chills on you. And I've played it 50 times for my daughters, that and Iron Man 2, which I won't go into. AC/DC when he jumps out the back of the plane. No, to put a cap on this story. So it turns out, they sentenced this kid. He got some prison time. And I finally was able to negotiate a restitution settlement that made neither party happy, but was able to get that done. And just a very interesting thing, but there was a law passed and it reduced sentencing. So all of these U.S. probation officers across the nation had to go back and recalculate the sentencing guidelines. So it just so happens they were so overworked. My former district, the chief there, I didn't know him very well. He reached out to me. Now I was academy director at this point. And he said, Ron, I pulled that horse case. That's what he called it.
Yeah.
And he said, I had to rework that. He said, I just wanted you to know, I don't know how in the world that you put all that together. I had charts of these horses. And I told him, I said, look, it put years on my life is how I put it together.
Oh my goodness.
It was 4 months just doing the report and putting it together.
That's a lot.
But I want to end on a positive. It got my interest so stirred in horses that I literally started taking my daughters to the show horse events, and they loved it. And to see what those beautiful creatures could do, and they're marching and prancing around, and it was amazing. So yes, I have a vested interest, even though I've never owned a horse. I love them. And of course, love when the Derby comes around.
Oh, absolutely. And it's interesting. So I never personally owned a horse, but my high school boyfriend lived on a little ranch and he was a horse trainer. He just had that horse whisperer effect at a young age. And so I was around horses a lot for 2 years. And there was even one point where his dad was going to sell a horse that had gone old. She was old. She had a sway back. And I was like, no, don't sell Gracie. And he's like, you come and feed her every day. We'll keep her around and you ride her. So I did. And I would go there even when no one was home, and I would feed her, even though I'm allergic to the grass and it gives me welts on my arms, the alfalfa. And I did that. So I can see the love for the horse. And, these were horses that didn't necessarily earn them a lot of money, but it's like, it's just different. It's like, the dog lovers, but it's enhanced, right? There's just a different relationship there. So when you were explaining that story, I can see that for those horse owners who lost their horse. It's an extension of the family. And also you had a really difficult position because you had a kid, you're trying to figure out restitution. You have a 19-year-old kid who's not going to be able to pay them back, right? It's just a number on a document.
I used to like cases so much better when there was a good guy, bad guy.
Yeah.
And this one kind of pulled at my heartstrings and that's how I got them to settle on the restitution. I'm like, the kid's not going to pay this back. Let's be realistic.
Right.
And he had a tough upbringing. There was a lot to this. It was emotional for me on so many levels. Mm-hmm. And I'm telling you, they would have hung this kid if they could have, the horse owners. That's how much visceral was involved.
Right.
But all right. Let's get back on track. No pun intended.
Yeah. Love it. We're going to talk about.
Thank you. I'm here all the time.
All night. Okay. You're going to share with us about the jockeys. Yeah. I find jockeys very interesting. One, because they're so tiny. They're so small. And, they're the smallest athletes with the biggest pressure, some would argue.
Kristin loves it because she towers over them.
I feel real good about at 5'1" here. I at least tower over a few of them.
As Kristin said, they're tiny. On average, they weigh 108 to 118 pounds. They stand about 4'10" to 5'6", and keeping that weight is brutal. These are highly trained athletes. They do not get enough credit, but they're under constant pressure. They stay in the light without losing strength. Mm-hmm. And man, can you imagine the pressure? And I know the Derby and the Preakness and the Belmont, they're all short races, but my gosh, the pressure of training and getting on that horse and that muddy mess. Wow, my hat's off.
Yeah, absolutely. And I read that many jockeys follow super rigid diets, often sweating off pounds in saunas or with exercise before a race. That reminds me of like wrestlers in high school. They would wear the garbage sacks and run in place just to sweat off some weight before weigh-in. But some only eat one small meal a day during the racing season. And it takes a physical toll. I mean, it's an incredible physical toll. They need balance, reflexes, courage, of course. And they're steering a 1,200-pound animal running 40 miles an hour with barely any protective gear. They have those tiny little hats on, the English riding hats. I mean, it's a little tiny brain bucket, but that's about it.
Yeah. And that's not just athleticism. That's a leadership mindset. You've got to control your fear, stay disciplined, and perform under extreme conditions with the world watching. And Kristin, I was looking into this. There's a few people who really talk the nitty-gritty of leadership. And I heard this guy, he said, I never trust anyone that's grossly overweight. I'll never let them handle my finances. He said that speaks undisciplined to me. And I thought, you know what? Subconsciously, when I see that, I wouldn't either. And people don't talk about those things very much. But
I know.
The discipline that these jockeys have is serious. It's serious stuff. And you talked about that. I watch these UFC guys trying to cut weight all the time, and it's brutal. It's brutal.
It really is. With the wrestlers that I mentioned, I think back on, that's one of the things that really attracted me to wrestlers was that discipline. And I just thought, wow, that's awesome that they take it to that level to be successful, right? Even though it does take a negative toll on the body. But there is something that you have to be in awe over when you see somebody going to the extreme like that to be successful.
Yeah, no kidding. I thought you watched like WCW kind of wrestling. Am I wrong?
No, I'm talking like Greco-Roman. Yeah, no,
I
definitely
can see Kristin next to the
not.
TV yelling at those wrestlers.
No, I have a very low tolerance for like phony stuff. So definitely not me. Okay. So back to the jockeys. When they take the fall, and there's so many videos out there. I watched a few in preparation for this. I'm talking like when the horse, slips in the mud. Like there's so many circumstances. If something goes wrong when they're on the back of those horses going at that speed, they face frequent injuries. And yet they get back up because they know they're part of a larger team and legacy.
Yeah. And we've set the stage here to let you know the discipline, but we've not talked about, it's a full-time leadership, managing trainers, handling sponsorships, traveling nonstop, marketing your horse, dealing with the media. Like it's everything that you can imagine. So, wow. This is, it's just exciting to think about, and the correlation to leadership, it's all there.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, to your point, Derby owners, they don't just show up in fancy hats on race day, sip mint juleps, even though that does sound delicious, and watch the action. It's a full-time leadership job. And, don't forget managing egos. That's a big piece right there. Yeah. You and I have both managed egos, Ron. And, you've got jockeys, trainers, vets, barn staff. There's a lot of moving parts, and it's like running a mini startup where your main product has 4 legs and could twist an ankle at any moment.
Yeah, those injuries can be devastating. Yeah, and you have to lead with flexibility and humility. You got to adjust on the fly. I've seen, again, please, if you're listening, go back and watch the movie Secretariat. And Kristin, there is a picture on Time Magazine that's never been captured before, but on the final lap, when they took a picture of Secretariat, there's no other horse in the picture.
Oh, wow.
That's how much that horse won by.
That's that lead. Wow.
My former mentor, Dr. Sam Samples, went there, and he had pictures of him petting Secretariat after it had been put out to stable. And
so cool.
Yeah.
That is really cool.
Let's look at some leadership. Oh, go ahead.
You know what? I have to do this with you, Ron. So this is slightly off topic. But if you compile your top 20 or your top 10 favorite movies, which you just shared one of yours, and then you just plug them into Chatgpt and you say, give me a personality analysis based on my top 10 favorite movies, it will almost nail your personality to a T.
I'm afraid to do that, Kristin.
Do it.
But thank you for the information.
It's so cool. I mean, mine went from Lost in Translation, a Japanese film, to Glory, a Civil War movie, right, of the First Black Regiment. So, I mean, mine was vast, but it really brought it right down. So you have to do that, Ron. Then you have to tell me.
All right, I'll do it.
We'll share out the next episode.
I'm going to make up really cool movies.
Oh, you're like Rambo.
Well, that's going to be in the top 10. I got to tell you.
All right, let's hit the big takeaways. First, resilience. These teams lose far more than they win, but good leaders know how to pull the group back together and keep pushing.
Yeah, and they also play the long game. And Chris and I didn't tell you this, but I had a multi-$1,000 contract I thought I was getting, and it went away last Thursday. Not because of anything we did. It was because of budget cuts, and that's okay. I'm a conservative guy. I'll live with it, but I can't tell you that it wasn't a punch in the gut. So I had to apply my own leadership principles because that one was almost money in the bank. So
brutal.
But
was it Doge? Elon and Co. Okay.
No, I mean, it's government. So
exactly.
There's a correlation there.
I know.
I try to practice what I preach. So,
right.
But you know what I started doing, and this is in no way boastful, because I took a full day to mourn, like that evening and the next day. I just kind of took a day for myself. And it wasn't that I was constantly thinking about that, but I needed to regroup.
Yeah.
And I come back strong, and I'm working on a speaker reel. We're working on some new things. Kristin has very good social media skills, and I've reached out to her. She's given me some advice. It's Kristin that I'm talking to here.
I'm like, what?
I made it like a third person.
I know. I'm like, is this another Kristin?
She's a little harsh, but she does give me feedback.
I'm like, that font was bad. I'm glad I know you can take it. You're a tough guy.
No, that was good feedback, because I hadn't thought about the font. And by the way, I didn't tell you this. I'm going to put that in something to do with my leadership, because font is important.
Oh, yeah.
And so anyway, let's move on. I got so distracted on losing money in my top 10 movies that I don't even know where I am. Okay.
Well, you talked about the long game, which is important. Okay. All right. Well, I think, talent management, no one person wins the Derby. So smart leaders, like in any industry, right?
Yeah.
Smart leaders hire experts and they listen to them. It's that whole 2 ears, 1 mouth situation. And they create an environment where everyone can shine. You know, it's funny right now. I know most people are listening, but I'm like using my hands and like numbering, like counting off but it's so true. So it's really important to understand that, leaders, we have to listen. We have to hire people that fill the gaps that we have.
Yeah. And also the power of a story and branding. And, you have to have a brand, and we'll probably talk more about that in another episode, because one of the things I do in coaching is help people rebrand. And I tell them it takes about 12 months. We want to get them back on the winning formula so they can get promoted or get a different job and those kind of things. So winning on the track's one thing, but building a brand the world cares about is another story, because you have to have that. It amplifies everything you do.
Right. I have to share, even literally like 20 minutes before we logged on, Ron, one of the Taekwondo dads that is at the same dojan as we are, he is a very successful entrepreneur and investor. And he loves what I do concerning social media. Like he thinks that's awesome. He loves the platform. I was like, you know what? I need you to help me with some, I need you to see me as a charity cause here and give me some of your insight on, because I worked for 20 years making other people rich, right? If you think about it, we're making CEOs wealthy and all of that. And I'm like, I need you to help me. I have the platforms but help me really hone this. And he's like, absolutely. Like that's what he does. That's his jam. And for someone to be humble and reach out and say, I just don't have that mindset. Like, help me hone that. You have to do it. And he's more than happy to assist. So, I think we need to ask for help more often also.
You know, what's interesting, I just had a conversation with Jared Bull. He's out in Arizona now. I used to be in Denver, but he coached me, and then I went through his 10-week master class. And that's what we did, is I asked him some specific questions about Google Ads and to get to the next level. I had a little bit of information for him as well, but he had more for me than I did him. But you have to do that. There's people with expertise, and you are I hate to call you a fool, but if you've got someone with expertise you need and you're too proud to ask for it, you're only hurting yourself.
Yeah, exactly. I would say the only exemption is when you're friends with a doctor. Don't go like showing them like little things you've got, like skin tags and all that stuff. Unless Ron's like, I don't know. I think I'd go for it. Like, I've got a little concern here. Can you take a peek?
It sounds like Kristin is dealing with some trauma. Well, I'll take care of that offline, people. Let's continue.
My goodness.
Tell us some Derby fun facts, Kristin.
Yes, I love this part. Okay. What's funny? I say fun fact a lot at the house, just with the kids. And the other day, my daughter was like, fun fact about me. And then she shared, I don't even remember what it was, but I was like, yes, that's so cool. But, okay. The Derby is nicknamed the Run for the Roses. We see them put the roses, right? A little ring of roses on the horse, because the winner gets a blanket of over 400 red roses. Pretty cool.
And I found this one was go ahead. You say it.
No, you're fine.
I didn't know this.
You're on it, Ron. We'll rotate.
Only 3 fillies have ever won. And if you don't know what a filly is, don't call a woman a filly in your office. Like
a female horse.
They did used to use that was derogatory. Like they would go, she's a cute little filly.
Oh,
remember
boy.
That?
I don't know if I'm at that age.
It was like saying she's hot.
A filly.
Well, it was before me. Kristin, I'm a student of history. Let's move on. Hey, little filly, move on.
Oh, my gosh. Secretariat set the speed record in 1973, and that record still stands, which is pretty remarkable.
I got chills when you said it. People, watch that movie.
Ron's going to go watch it again tonight.
I am. You read my mind. I was like, I'm gonna watch that.
Yeah.
Keep going, Kristin.
Okay, sounds good.
You do it.
You're fine. Okay. Here's the whole mint julep. I've actually never had one, Ron. So next time I'm in Charleston, I have a feeling it's a Southern drink. I would like a mint julep. But there are over 120,000 mint juleps served every day, or excuse me, every Derby weekend. So 120,000 mint juleps served every Derby weekend. Sounds so good.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, the big hats. Okay. You talked about the hats earlier. That started because the founder wanted the event to feel high society, like European races.
And I got to tell you, I went to that, you probably saw on social media. I competed in a bocce ball tournament.
Yes.
But it was in support of the Special Olympics. But we all went to this big, huge cookout. And a lot of people were either going to or had come from a derby party. And there were people there with the hats.
Oh, fun.
I just loved it. It was just cool. We were on the water. And I'm very
Beautiful.
blessed to live in Charleston for sure.
Yeah, you just don't see that out here, right? Like it's the West Coast. It's just not. I'm sure there's one-off parties, some places, but that would be so cool to be a part of.
Maybe you should start it, Kristin. You're a trailblazer. You're a pioneer.
Oh boy, yeah. I don't know. All right, that would be really cool, though. Pretty Woman. Was there a scene? Were they at the Kentucky Derby?
I think they were. You're
right, and that's where she wore that beautiful, it was like a black and white polka dot dress with a big hat. How fun. They were in LA though, I do believe.
Well, that's where they probably filmed it, but I think they were pretending they were at the Derby.
I think so. I might have to revisit that movie too. Adding to the list here.
Well, take us home, Kristin.
All right. So definitely enjoy watching the fashion and for the stories. But, whether you're watching a horse cross the finish line or leading your own team through competition or just success, right? That can really play anywhere. It's the leadership behind the scenes that makes the magic happen.
Yeah, and Kristin knows I do a lot about brain functionality, and I say this, almost no industry knows how to document a win, and your team loves winning. Everybody loves winning, but the problem is only sports and sales seem to monopolize on winning. I asked someone, this is so interesting, Kristin, today on the phone, because they're teaching. And I said, what do you consider a victory? And she's like, I don't know, maybe not getting fired at the end of the day. So
that's a low bar.
She said that sarcastically, but it's very true. So if you do not have a winning environment, I tell everyone, if you send a good email, you give yourself that mental pat on the back. Say, I did a good job on that. Start to record victories because it's going to make you more positive, more powerful, more confident. And, it doesn't take a horse race, but I will tell you one thing, man, I love when an underdog wins. And if you're out there feeling like an underdog, just get back on the horse. No pun intended.
You're punning all over the place.
And I'm full of puns today.
Pun master.
Why the long face? Kidding.
Oh my gosh. Ron, we're not cutting that.
I can't pull it back together.
Oh my goodness. Okay, that's amazing. That's amazing. I'm sure you have so many more up your sleeve.
I had a few stud jokes, but we'll keep. Let's move along. Let's end this thing.
Oh, goodness. All right, you guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this. And we talk about being the most interesting person in the room and knowing these facts, whether you're interested in the Kentucky Derby or not. Now you know a bit about it and you can plug that into conversations. And I think that fact alone is really cool.
Absolutely. Everybody, thanks so much for sticking with us. Tell people about the podcast. Do the downloads. If you do like to watch it on YouTube, click like and subscribe, all of those things. Yeah. But the biggest thing that helps us is the podcast part. So spread the word.
Yep. Share with a friend, family member, neighbor, rando. We appreciate you very much.
Be the leader you're meant to be.
We'll see you next week.
The Dirty Side of Leadership podcast is brought to you by Forward Operations. If you'd like to book Ron or Kristin for speaking events, training, or executive coaching, visit forwardoperations.com. Be the leader you're meant to be.